She was already dialing 911 before the tires even stopped rolling. A black SUV pulled into our driveway, the windows tinted dark, the engine idling low and mean like it had something to prove. Karen stood across the street in her usual white t-shirt and that storm cloud of white hair, arms crossed, lips curled, eyes locked on the vehicle like it was some kind of threat to her precious cul-de-sac. She didn't even blink. Just paced toward her porch, shouting something to her Bluetooth headset. I was never leaving the car. She thought it was a drug deal or a gang meetup. She had no idea who was inside that SUV. No idea what kind of man was about to step out. I watched from the front window, heart pounding. I hadn't seen my brother in over 2 years. Not since the last deployment. The last time he FaceTimed, half his face was bandaged and he couldn't feel his legs. He told me not to worry. He always told me not to worry. But I worried anyway. That's what brothers do. The SUV door cracked open and silence fell over the block. Even the wind paused. Karen's voice rose, louder now, panicked. She pointed at the vehicle and yelled to the dispatcher that a suspicious individual was exiting a military-style vehicle in violation of HOA code. She screamed that she feared for her life. She hadn't seen the man's face yet, just the boot that hit the pavement. Then the second one, heavy scarred. Then the cane. He stepped out slowly, back straight, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. His posture said military, but his limp told a different story. A bullet had shattered his thigh, and 3 surgeries later, he still walked like something inside him hadn't healed. He paused, scanning the house, then the street. Then he looked right at her. I could see her freeze. Her voice hitched mid-sentence. She didn't expect a uniform. She didn't expect medals. She didn't expect someone who walked like he'd carried half his unit on his back. I ran outside before she could say another word. My heart slammed in my chest. He dropped his cane and opened his arms. I ran into them like I was 8 again. He held me for just a second longer than he needed to, like he didn't believe I was real. Then the sirens came. 2 patrol cars, lights flashing, tires screeching. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds. Phones were recording. Karen pointed like a director on a movie set, waving them toward him, screaming that he was dangerous, that he didn't belong here, that the HOA didn't approve of his kind of presence. The first officer stepped out, hand resting on his holster. My brother raised his hands, calm, like this wasn't the first time someone with power misunderstood him. The cop asked for ID. My brother didn't argue. He reached slowly into his coat and handed over a military ID with a purple stripe across the top. The officer paused, blinked, then his whole body changed. He stepped back, looked again, then looked up at my brother's face. Recognition clicked like a snapped bone. Karen kept yelling. Something about rules, property values, codes. But the cop didn't look at her. He looked at my brother, and then he saluted. Karen's voice choked mid-rant. I stared. So did the neighbors. The whole street seemed to freeze in time. But my brother didn't react. He just nodded, took his ID back, and turned toward the house. Karen stepped forward again, furious, red-faced, trying to rally the cops. They ignored her. She grabbed her phone, still on the line with the HOA president, now demanding legal action. Inside the house, my brother collapsed into the couch like he'd been carrying the whole world on his back. And maybe he had. He didn't speak. Just looked at the dog tags on his wrist, rubbed them once like a prayer. Outside, Karen paced like a wolf denied the kill. Her eyes darted between the cop, the SUV, the house. She didn't know who she had just tried to report. And she still didn't know what was coming next. The next morning, the SUV still sat in the driveway like a statement. My brother hadn't even unpacked. He hadn't said much at all. Just sat by the window, watching the sunrise through glass like it might vanish if he blinked. His cane leaned against the wall, his duffel bag still zipped shut. The only thing he'd taken out was a small wooden box wrapped in a black cloth. He hadn't opened it yet. Karen, though, she was up early. I saw her pacing across the street, phone glued to her hand, snapping pictures like she was documenting a crime scene. Her mouth never stopped moving. She wasn't just angry. She was scared of what I didn't know. Maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe it was what he represented, something she couldn't control. At 9 a.m. sharp, she showed up at our front door with a clipboard and a forced smile that cracked at the edges. She didn't even greet us, just held out a violation notice, her eyes darting past me toward the living room. "This is a formal HOA warning," she said, voice sharp as glass. "Unauthorized vehicle. Unapproved occupant. Violation of subsection 7. My brother stepped into view behind me. No words, just his presence. His height. His silence. Karen took one small step back, then caught herself and tried to stand taller. "He doesn't live here," she snapped. "And if he plans to, we'll need to file the paperwork. We don't allow long-term guests without prior approval." She smiled again, but this time it was venom, not courtesy. "He's not a guest," I said. "He's family." She didn't blink. Then he spoke. First time all day. "I bled on 3 continents for this country. Do I need a permit to come home?" Her jaw tightened. She turned without another word, storming back across the lawn like she was the one under attack. And then she did what she always does, rallied back up. By noon, 2 more board members showed up. Middle-aged, stiff smiles, clipboards in hand. They didn't even look at my brother when they asked about the SUV. "Military-style vehicles aren't permitted," one said, reading from a paper like it was scripture. "It's a Chevy Suburban," I replied. "Bought it at a dealership 10 miles from here." "You want the receipt?" "Doesn't matter," he said. "The optics. It intimidates the neighbors." My brother laughed. Short, cold. The kind of laugh you don't forget. "The optics, huh?" He stepped out onto the porch and stood tall, despite the pain he never mentioned. The metals on his chest caught the sunlight, and for 1 second, nobody could meet his eyes. One of the board members muttered something about keeping the peace and left. The other followed, pretending to take a call. Karen stood on her lawn, arms crossed, victorious. That night, he didn't sleep. Neither did I. Around midnight, I found him outside, sitting on the tailgate of the SUV, staring up at the sky. "You ever think I shouldn't have come back?" he asked. "No, because it feels like a war followed me here." I didn't know what to say. Then headlights pulled into the driveway behind him. A second SUV. Out stepped a man in uniform, walking on a prosthetic leg. He smiled, saluted my brother, and handed him a folder. "I thought you might need these," he said. "Documents. Discharge records. Photos. Proof." My brother opened the folder and froze. Inside was a photo of his old unit. All 12 of them. Before the mission that only 4 returned from. He stared at their faces like ghosts were staring back. Karen watched from her window. Lights off, blinds barely open. The man sat beside my brother, silent. "She's coming for you," he said finally. "The board. They're planning legal action. Claims of endangerment. Emotional distress. The HOA's already drafting letters." "What should I do?" my brother asked. The man didn't answer. Just placed his hand on my brother's shoulder and nodded. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out something small. A challenge coin. Custom. It shimmered gold under the moonlight. He placed it in my brother's palm. "They want to fight?" he said. "Remind them who you are." Then he left. My brother looked at the coin, turned it over, closed his fist. The next morning, we woke up to a fresh letter taped to the door. HOA citation. Threat of eviction. Karen smiled from her porch like she'd already won. But this time, he didn't flinch. This time, he pinned the challenge coin to the wall above the door. And he said, "Let them come." It started with silence. No threats. No notices. Just stillness. The kind that coils under your skin before the strike. My brother sensed it first. He sat straighter that morning, eyes scanning the block like he was back on patrol. He didn't drink his coffee. He just held it, fingers clenched around the mug like it was a weapon. At exactly 10:06 a.m., a police cruiser rolled slowly past our house. Slower than usual. Eyes inside it tracked our home like it was tagged. It didn't stop, just circled. Once, twice, then vanished around the corner. "She's testing reactions," he said. I asked who. "Karen. She's pushing, watching to see how we respond. She wants us to slip up, wants the neighborhood to feel like we're dangerous." He wasn't wrong. The whispers had started. At the mailbox. In the grocery store. Some neighbors nodded, but others looked away. Conversations stopped when we entered rooms. Someone spray-painted a crude message on our driveway overnight. HOA equals law. And then came the officer. He knocked around noon. My brother opened the door and froze. The man in uniform stood straight, cap tucked under his arm. But it wasn't just anyone. It was Officer Reyes, a name my brother hadn't spoken in years. Because once, halfway around the world, they stood shoulder to shoulder in a firefight neither thought they'd survive. For a moment, the air split open. Not with words, but with memory. "You're alive," my brother whispered. "Barely," Reyes replied. Then Reyes did something that dropped every jaw in the neighborhood. He saluted. Karen's front door flung open. She marched across the lawn shouting about protocol, about abuse of power, about favoritism. Her voice cracked with fury. But Reyes ignored her. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. A copy of the HOA complaint. "It's nonsense," he said. But I had to follow it up. "You know how this works." My brother nodded. They spoke like soldiers, not civilians. Reyes looked around, leaned in, and said, "They're trying to revoke your right to live here. They're using a clause meant for emergency evacuations, safety concern to the community." "You're joking." "I wish I was." Karen yelled louder now. Called for his badge number. Accused him of being compromised. Then Reyes turned to her and spoke loud enough for the entire block to hear. "This man dragged me out of a burning convoy in Kandahar. He carried me 2 miles under sniper fire. He is the reason I'm alive." The street fell silent. Karen's mouth hung open, but no words came out. For once, she had nothing. Then she hissed, "This is a cover-up. I want a full board hearing. I want a vote." And she got one. 3 days later, we received an official summons. HOA board vote. Topic: immediate review of residency violation and community disturbance complaint. She wasn't backing down. Neither were we. My brother reached for his duffel bag, unzipped it for the first time. Inside, folded uniform, old combat boots, a sealed envelope marked classified in red ink, and a letter. Not from the military. From the president. He didn't read it out loud, just stared at the signature. "You think this matters to them?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. He nodded once, then looked at the letter like it was the last shred of peace he had left. "Let's find out." The HOA meeting was held in the community center. White walls, plastic chairs, an American flag pinned crooked behind the folding table they called a board. Karen sat in the center, gavel in hand like she was born to wield power. The other 4 members flanked her like shadows. Most of the neighborhood had shown up. Not for support, but for spectacle. We walked in as one. My brother, cane in hand, suit clean, eyes forward. Not a uniform, he refused to wear it. Said this wasn't about military pride. Said this was about something deeper. Dignity, presence, memory. Karen didn't even look up. Just cleared her throat and slammed the gavel once. "We're here to discuss community safety," she said. "The presence of unauthorized vehicles and potential threats to neighborhood peace." My brother didn't speak. She pointed to the SUV. "That," she hissed, "looks like a war truck. It's disturbing to children. To seniors. It sends a message." "What message?" he asked calmly. "That we're under siege," she snapped. Someone behind us scoffed. A neighbor. Quiet voice, but loud enough. "The only siege is your mouth, Carla." Karen ignored it. "The board will now review the complaint." She held up the violation file like a trophy. My brother took a single step forward, reached into his coat, pulled out the letter. The one with the presidential seal. He didn't say a word, just placed it gently on the table in front of her. She laughed. Actually laughed. "You think some politician's letter changes HOA code?" One of the other board members leaned forward, read it, then froze. His mouth opened slightly. Then he turned pale. Karen tried to snatch the letter back, but it was too late. The other members demanded to read it. Then whispers broke out. Words like honor, classified, Medal of Valor, survivor. Karen's fingers trembled as she slammed the gavel again. We're not here to worship veterans. We're here to follow rules. My brother looked her dead in the eyes. Do your rules matter more than a man's life? Silence. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Let him speak." The room erupted. People stood. Neighbors who had watched from their windows now demanded answers. So he spoke. I was gone for 3 years. I missed my mother's funeral, my niece's birth, and everything in between. I didn't come back expecting banners. I came back because I needed to breathe. And this neighborhood, this house, that's the only place I remember feeling human. His voice cracked just once. I didn't ask for a parade, just peace. But you've turned my homecoming into a battlefield. Why? Karen tried to answer, stumbled. Her voice faltered. Because we have procedures. Because order matters. But no one was listening anymore. The room had turned. One by one, neighbors stood, some with tears in their eyes, some ashamed they hadn't spoken sooner. A woman from 3 doors down said her husband never came home, and that seeing my brother reminded her of him. A teenager stepped forward and saluted, said he wanted to serve one day. That seeing my brother made him proud to live here. Then the vote came. 4 board members. 3 voted to drop the charges. Karen's was the only dissenting voice. She slammed the gavel again, but it echoed hollow. "This isn't over," she growled. My brother turned to her, quiet. "You're right. It's not." The next morning, Karen's lawn was bare. Her flagpole, normally hoisting a bright HOA banner, stood empty. No clipboard in sight. No phone glued to her palm. Just silence, for once, on her side of the street. But that didn't mean she was done. My brother stood on the porch sipping coffee, the letter still pinned above our door. The SUV, freshly washed, gleamed under the sun like it had something to say. The neighbors who once avoided eye contact now waved. Some even stopped to talk. One left fresh cookies on the porch with a simple note, "Welcome home." But peace never stays long when pride's been wounded. By dusk, a black car parked 2 houses down. 2 men in suits stepped out, sunglasses on even as the sun dipped behind the houses. They didn't approach, just stood there watching. Karen watched too. From her window, blinds barely cracked, her expression unreadable. They came back the next day. And the one after that. My brother didn't ask questions. He just made calls. Long ones. Quiet ones. Old names from old places. Names that don't show up in any phone book. By the end of the week, one of the men approached our driveway. "Mr. Torres," he said calmly, "we've been made aware of a growing narrative involving your residents. Community unrest. Security concerns. We're here to assess the situation." "You assessing me?" my brother asked. "No, sir. We're assessing the threat around you." Karen stepped onto her porch just then, waving with an innocent smile, as if she hadn't filed another complaint that morning, this one claiming psychological intimidation. The agent looked at her, then back at my brother. "We know who you are, sir. And we're not here because of you. We're here because someone decided to target a decorated soldier in his own home." My brother didn't smile. He just nodded slow. The men left without another word. That night, someone set off fireworks in our backyard. Not for celebration, just noise. Pure chaos. The booms echoed like artillery, shaking the windows. My brother didn't move, didn't duck, just stood still, eyes closed. I found him outside later, barefoot in the grass, holding the spent firework shell like it was something alive. "They want to break me," he said. "They won't." The next day, we installed cameras. Reinforced the gate. Neighbors came by to help, unasked. A quiet resistance had begun. Karen filed one more complaint. This time with city council. She accused the entire block of conspiracy. But the council had already seen the reports. They'd seen the footage, the harassment, the pattern. They issued a warning to her. That night, her HOA banner returned, but this time it was frayed, torn at the edges. A symbol, maybe, or maybe just the wind. We didn't celebrate. We didn't gloat. But my brother stood a little straighter. And the next morning, for the first time since he came home, he unpacked. The boxes came out slowly, dusty, sealed with tape that had yellowed over years. Each one carried pieces of a life paused in the middle of something too big to finish. Medals, photos, letters so creased they looked like they'd been folded 100 times in the dark. My brother laid them out in silence. The living room became a battlefield of memory. A photo of him and his squad in the desert sun. A journal with edges burned from a convoy fire. A child's drawing, crayons on military-issue paper, from a school in Kandahar. In the corner of one box, a single dog tag bent nearly in half. Not his. I didn't ask. I just sat with him. Outside, the neighborhood moved like nothing had happened. Kids on bikes. Sprinklers ticking across fresh lawns. But inside, something shifted. He wasn't hiding anymore. And that scared Karen. The next morning, her lawn sign changed again. It didn't say HOA Pride this time. It said Community First. A veiled attempt at unity, but no one bought it. Then she showed up on our porch. No clipboard. No fake smile. Just her and a manila envelope. She handed it to my brother without a word. Inside, a formal letter of censure. From the HOA. Accusing him of violating Section 14, emotional provocation through display of military paraphernalia, a clause no one had ever enforced. One probably written decades ago, meant for something entirely different. But she found it, and now she was using it. My brother stared at the letter, then folded it once and handed it back. "This isn't about your rules," he said. "It's about your fear." She didn't deny it. "Your presence brings unrest," she said. "People talk. They wonder what kind of man needs that kind of truck, that kind of training. They wonder what he's hiding." "I'm not hiding anything," he said. "You are." Then he stepped back inside and closed the door. That night, a town hall meeting was announced. Not by the HOA, by the residents. Unofficial. Unfiltered. Every chair in the community center was filled. Karen arrived late, flanked by 2 board members still loyal to her. But this time, the crowd wasn't silent. A mother stood up first, said her son slept better knowing there was a soldier on the block. An older man followed, said he hadn't flown the flag in years, until my brother came home. Even kids spoke about how they'd seen someone stand up to unfairness and they weren't scared anymore. Then someone asked the real question. Why are we letting one person dictate how we live? Karen stood, eyes burning. Because rules matter. No one argued. But then a quiet voice said, "So does kindness." It came from the back, from Rez. He wasn't in uniform, just jeans and a flannel. But when he spoke, the room listened. This man saved lives. He didn't ask for honor. He asked for peace. And we're watching someone rip it away out of spite. Silence swallowed the room. Then, one by one, people stood. Not with signs, not with shouts, just stood. Karen didn't yell this time. She just sat down. And for the first time in weeks, she looked small. The sun rose slower that morning, like even the sky was holding its breath. My brother stepped out onto the porch in full uniform, not for a show, not for the neighbors, but for himself. For the first time since he'd returned, he wore the fabric that carried his past, stitched with pain, honor, and survival. Across the street, Karen's blinds stayed closed. The board issued a notice that afternoon. Karen was stepping down. Officially, it cited personal reasons. Unofficially, the neighborhood had spoken. Her authority had cracked, not from rebellion, but from quiet unity, from truth. By evening, families gathered in front yards. Grills lit. Music played low. A kind of peace filled the block. Not perfect, not polished, but real. Earned. My brother sat on a lawn chair, boots grounded in soft earth, a worn photo in his hand. The same one from his deployment. In it, 5 men stood under a torn American flag. Only 2 were still alive. Reyes sat beside him, silence between them deeper than any conversation. "Remember when we said we'd find a place to grow old?" Reyes said. "Yeah," my brother answered. "I didn't think it would have an HOA." They laughed, not loud, but enough. Then a boy approached, maybe 10 years old, nervous, holding a small notebook. "Mister, can I ask you something?" My brother nodded. "Were you scared?" "Over there." He thought for a long moment. "Yeah, every day. But I was never alone. The boy nodded, then ran off. A minute later, he came back with his dad, and two more neighbors followed. One by one, people crossed the street. Not to gawk, to listen, to ask, to understand. Karen never came out, but her house stayed dark that night. And the next. Days passed. Then weeks. The SUV stayed. The cameras came down. The flag flew again, but this time beside it another one, folded in the shape only soldiers recognize, hung beneath the porch, light like a quiet warning and a quiet prayer. My brother started building again. The workshop behind the house that sat empty for years now echoed with sound, metal against metal, wood being shaped by steady hands. Not weapons. Furniture. Art. Something lasting. One afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up. A long wooden crate inside. He opened it, unwrapped layers of cloth until the object emerged, a hand-carved bench. On its backrest, engraved words in sharp, clean lettering. Welcome home, soldier. He didn't cry. He just sat down. Across the street, someone finally removed the HOA banner from Karen's lawn, replaced it with a small garden. No signs, just color. The street didn't return to normal. It became something better, something earned. And every night, as the lights dimmed and the breeze cooled the pavement, my brother sat on that bench with the flag gently swaying beside him. A man who'd been through war, through loss, through the weight of silence, and finally through home. This time, no one could take it from him. So if this story meant something to you, if it made you feel something, like share and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us, sometimes the fight doesn't end on the battlefield. Sometimes it begins on your front lawn.